Wow, I already drank that whole shake? This is a beauty. This is bicolor tourmaline from the Congo in Africa, and it's a monster, weighing in at just over 38 carats. It's so hard to find and even harder to negotiate a price where I can take this beauty home. But in this case, the sun and the moon and the stars were all aligned, and I was able to pick this piece of tourmaline rough. Now, when you look at the gemstone lengthwise, this is called the C-axis. In this case, you see color, which is good. And that means this piece has an open C-axis. All too often, when you look down into pieces of tourmaline lengthwise, you'll see black. And that's called a closed C-axis. And the C-axis has a significant say in the final color of your gemstone. So you need to understand the C-axis and cut the stone accordingly. In this case, it's a bit odd in that our C-axis is that cool kind of reddish brown on either side of the stone, either axis you look down. Neither is green, neither side is green. So that's going to affect the final color, as both the end caps of the final gemstone are going to be the greenish, or the reddish brown and not the greenish. So there'll be kind of a band of reddish brown, then the green. It's going to be kind of unique, but that's due to the C-axis. Okay, to put our tourmaline in the spindle of our machine, we want to orient it so that the long way corresponds to the 48 and 96 index teeth, the 72 and the 24. So lengthwise 24 and 72, and the width the 96 and the 48. And we're going to cut a rectangular design. We're ready to start cutting. Okay, I used my 320 grit topper to kind of preform our tourmaline, and I started with the 96 and 48 index teeth with the P5 instruction, which was basically where you get to the center point. So I started there, and then I worked backwards to the P3 and the P1 facets, because that tells me kind of where I need to be. And I'm not quite meeting the keel here. There's you see the kind of untouched space there. But I was using a 320 grit topper, so I'll get the meet point with my 600 grit topper. And these black marks are where I use my Sharpie to kind of help me see where I'm cutting. Don't be afraid to use a permanent marker, a Sharpie, to help you with your cutting, see where your facets are. Of course, use the permanent marker. Don't use a water-based one, or it'll just come right off. So I'll continue to work on this tourmaline with our 600 grit sintered lap. Okay, so I'm just now closing up the keel, getting both sides to match. So that means I've got the stone about as wide as I can get it, and coming down just far enough where I'll leave enough space to cut the upper half. So this is about as big as I can get this stone, but it is closing that keel up, so I'm kind of right where I want it, and I'll continue to work on our gemstone. Okay, I finished polishing up the bottom half of our bicolor tourmaline, and so now I'll transfer the stone and we'll cut the upper half. Okay, I just put in my two-part epoxy on the dop here, so it's setting up right now, and I wanted to show you something here. So I could have used instead of two-part epoxy, I could have used my UV light activated super glue, which I think would have worked fine, but for larger stones I tend to use my two-part epoxy. But I wanted to show you the center. If you look at the center line of the dop, I've taken off more on this side of my stone than this side. They're not equal, and you can do that with rectangle stones, step cuts, no problem. The reason I did is I had an issue here I had to cut out, And I could have cut out both sides and kept the center line just the way it was, but that would have made the stone a lot smaller. I didn't want to do that, so I cut this side out. It'll change the center, but as the variance between the two colors kind of goes at an angle, it's not perfectly straight, that won't really bother me. I think taking off this side and not this side made the stone a little bit bigger, and that's what I wanted to do. So the stone's not centered, so when you do the 24 and you cut the 72 for any facet, the 24 tooth and the 72 tooth, all you have to do is reset the height of your mask. You just can't cut the 24 and 72 without resetting the height because they're not at equal distance. So I just want to say that it's not a problem. That's a technique you can use. If you have a inclusion you want to work through on one side of the stone, you don't have to cut both sides and keep making this side smaller and keep it equal. When it's a rectangle step cut, you don't have to do that. On a round brilliant, you certainly would have to do that. So I just wanted to show you that. Okay, for the upper half or the crown of our gemstone, I'm using a rather rough, well not too rough, but a 320 grit, just a topper, because I've got a lot of material to move. So what I'm doing is the 96 tooth and the 48 tooth, the length side, long sides, trying to move the material down. And what I'm going to do is level the girdle and set the girdle width at about 5.5 millimeters or around there. It's a big stone, so it could be a little bit bigger of a girdle. It won't matter. So around 0.5 millimeters, but I'll start with, again, a 320 grit topper and go around this row of facets, and then I'll use my 600 grit sintered lap to clean things up and get it just exactly where I need it on the, or want it on the girdle width. Okay, I went over the first row, which was the 42 degree angle for all the facets, and brought it down and made my girdle right about 0.5 millimeters. So to bring it down, it kind of made a large facet. So when I do the next row, which is the 27 degree angles all the way around for all the facets, I could continue to use the 3000 grit diamond on the bat lap, which I've been using, or if it's going to take a while to move the next facet all the way down, because I want to move it from here probably down to here, and I may step back and use my 600 grit sintered lap to do some quick moving of those facets, and then get the next rows lined up, and then go back to the 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. It's kind of a judgment call, so just based on your experience, what you think is best. So let me see what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to go with the 600 grit sintered lap. Okay, so I did go ahead back to the 600 grit sintered lap and went over the facets again, so that it'll be quicker when I use the 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. So the 27 angle, the 12 angle, and then this top one, this is an angle of 10 degrees, and I just did that so that I get this top part out of the way, so that when I do get around to cutting and polishing, pre-polishing and polishing the this 12 degree row, 12 degree angle row, I'm not polishing this whole big facet, I'm just polishing this part, because by moving this to like a 10 degree or 9 degree or whatever you want to do, I use 10 degree, it's out of the way, and I'll only be working on this facet instead of a much larger facet. And I do that with large stones, and this is a fairly large stone. So now I'm back to cutting my, with my pre-polishing with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. Coming along nicely. Okay, the upper half of our gemstone polished right up with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap. So now I will set the stone up and to cut and polish the table, and then we'll be done with this gemstone. So the table of our bicolored tourmaline polished right up with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap. And to pre-polish the table, I started with a 600 grit sintered lap, and then went to 3,000 grit diamond on a bat lap before going to polish. And so now we'll soak our stone in acetone to remove the DOP from the stone, and dissolve the UV activated super glue, and then we'll send the stone off to BOPIE. I did want to show you this stone. This will be probably the next stone that I cut, at least for a video. I've got some other stones that I'll cut, but they won't be for video. They're either something I'm working for just for the store, for BOPIE'S store. There's things I've cut before. I don't think they'd make interesting videos, but I think this one will. This is a ametrine, and it's got the kind of the purple in 3 veins. So I've got a design I've got in mind that I want to cut this with, so I think it'll make an interesting video. So stay tuned for that, and that'll be the next video. And I don't do videos on everything I cut. Like right now I'm cutting some small tanzanite. They're just going to be standard cuts. I don't think it'll make an interesting video. I'm finishing up some sapphires. Although 3 of them ended up being color change, strong color change sapphire. I don't think they'd make a video. They're small pieces. And then a lab created blue sapphire for a customer for earrings, but I already made a video on that one before. So this will be the next video, so stay tuned. I really love cutting bicolor tourmaline, but it is difficult to find and it can be pricey. Now, I have built up a small collection of bicolor tourmaline over the years, which I plan to cut in the near future. But as I said earlier, this piece is by far the largest piece of bicolor tourmaline in my collection. The design is a common rectangle or emerald shaped design which any cutter should be able to cut. In fact, this design is actually suitable to be the first gemstone design that a new cutter cuts. So I recommend you give this design a cut if you haven't already tried it out. And if you notice that the final gemstone, there is a bit of reddish brown at both ends, kind of the end caps of the gemstone. And that's due to the C-axis being reddish brown. So it's kind of an interesting illusion or play of light. If you have cut bicolor tourmaline before, put a note in the comments and let us know how it turned out for you. And as always, happy fasting, everyone.